all because of one course, one required course I reluctantly taught.
Gloomy overcast looms with this constant, unescapable mist. My team stands drenched and utterly defeated. Now, this was my first year at RIT with the Ultimate Frisbee team, and it very well could have been my last. Allow me to elaborate on what sparked that April day. We had lost every game, every single game. Huddled in defeat, we had a decision to make. Do we retreat and allow failure to define us? Or do we band together to never again feel this anguish? And we chose the latter. But hold on, what exactly is Ultimate Frisbee? You see, it's similar to football in which you try to score in an end zone. However, the big difference is that with the disc, you can't move your feet. You can only advance down the field through throws. Now, this was the extent that I understood the game as a freshman. So how do we build a program when we don't even understand it? We had to start with research. What defined a good ultimate program? And then what was defining us? We learned tactics, offenses, defenses, and the entire thing got complex very quickly. Because of this, we had to practice more. One practice a week turned to 2, turned to 3. It spawned into separate workout sessions and whiteboard discussions. And through all of this, we saw mild success. But it's this success that bred a desire for more. Third year, and it was finally my time to take over. We all remember that April day, and nobody wants to go back there. But what do? We go outside. It turns out that this flying piece of plastic doesn't fare well in the weather. Light afternoons turn to dark evenings. Winds turn to gusts. Rain turns to sleet, which turns to snow. But we stay outdoors. We finished that season 3rd in the region, with the likes of large, storied programs. But still, our thirst was not quenched. I'm now in my final year. My final time to compete next to the brothers in arms that I've grown with. My final time to leave a legacy. However, despite physically leaving, it's the lessons left behind that'll lead those to come. They may not feel that burning burden of utter defeat, but they'll stand upon the foundation it provided. Extending beyond the organization, beyond the work, it isn't until now that I realize I met my family on the field that day. I met my family that I would huddle with in dark, blizzardy nights. I met my family that I can go to for everything and anything. Looking back with rose-colored glasses, I can see that a family was formed from the ashes of that dark, gloomy April day. Thank you.
What do you want to be when you grow up? We've all been asked this question far too many times to count, and long before we've had any real skills or experience. And if you're anything like me, even with those experience and skills, you still couldn't quite answer the question. I still couldn't quite tell you what I really wanted to be. But what if I wasn't the problem? What if it was the question? If I asked you a different question entirely, what do you love to do? I guarantee you can give me 3, 4, maybe even 10 answers. Figuring out what I love to do helped me to determine my career path, but it also helped me figure out where I belong here at RIT. But how does one go about figuring out what they love to do? Well, ironically, I figured out what I love to do doing something that I never really even liked at all: coding. It was my 2nd semester here. I was still a new media designer, and one of the basic requirements was coding. The project in particular that really opened my eyes to what I really love to do was a basic website redesign project. We were tasked to take a company and redesign a website from scratch that was both aesthetically pleasing and functional. Mine was a little bit of neither, and I got a generous C+ on the assignment. But for me, the grading, the coding, that wasn't the most important part. For me, the most important part was meeting with a real person and helping them actualize their goals. The company that I chose was the Great American Steak and Potatoes Company. Of course. It's a local company right in the marketplace malls that serve one of the best garbage places in the city. I know because I had a plate when I sat down with the owner, Tony. He helped me to understand his motivations and the goals for his company. Understanding his vision was the best part of that class, and for the rest of the semester, long after I finished the website, I continued to meet with Tony. And he talked to me about the pitfalls and the financial freedoms of entrepreneurship. It changed my entire perspective. In the next semester, I changed my major. I wanted to learn to do what I love from people who love to do the same thing. I'm now a PR professional. Every day I get to work with businesses, helping them with their image and their brand, but more importantly, I get to work directly with real people, helping them actualize goals, build relationships. I'm proud of what I do. And when someone asks me what I do, I can tell them I do what I love. So now I ask you, not what you want to be, but what do you love to do?
Think about how many power cords you have in your life. Then, think about how much rubber or plastic is used to protect the wiring on those cords. And finally, think about how much of that goes to waste. How do we minimize that waste without minimizing our use of electronic devices? It's very simple. We find a new insulator. My research is about using the abilities of electric fish to develop an insulating textile that is both easier to use and safer for the environment than what we use today. Electric fish are remarkable creatures. They can deliver electric shocks that range in strength from nothing to stunning to even killing their prey. And they do this without bringing any harm to themselves. Take the electric eel, for example. It can deliver up to 600 volts of electricity to its target. This is enough to knock out or incapacitate a full-grown human or even a horse. However, despite the largest of the species weighing less than 50 pounds, it feels no damage. There are a few theories as to why this is, but nothing conclusive so far. The most popular belief is that the electric fish feels the pain, but has simply developed an immunity to it over years of evolution. Discovering the true method these animals use to protect themselves is the first part of my research. But what does that have to do with insulation? Well, I'm sure many of you are aware that physics operates at even the smallest levels. Once we know how electric fish protect themselves, we can analyze that protection under a microscope. To do this, I would subject some of the cell tissue to small electric pulses and observe that reaction under the microscope. Then we can recreate that reaction in a different material. There's current research on the thread of the golden orb spider that is supposed to be so strong it can even be used for bulletproof vests. This material would be strong, long-lasting, and able to withstand up to 600 volts of electricity. That's 5 times the strength of the average American house socket. This means that this insulator could be used to replace nearly all the rubber or plastic covering wires in the average U.S. home. But why does that matter? Hundreds of millions of these wires get lost or thrown out every year. It is a significant contribution to ocean pollution and littering. By using a biodegradable material as strong as the golden orb spider thread and giving it those amazing insulating abilities, we can all but cut out that factor. Not only that, but if we can manipulate the structure of the material, we can allow it to stand against even stronger voltages. This would mean better protective gear for electricians and electrical engineers, protection against electric weapons for law enforcement and military. Of course, it could also be used to replace the insulation on even heavy-duty electronics, which would cut out even more of that factor. Before I finish this speech, I have to admit, we're still very far from making this happen, but I believe this research could make us that much closer. It would be beneficial not only for the environment, but also to the people who bring us protection, technology, and electricity. It is the potential for technology like this that drives me to do research in physics that revolves around marine and freshwater life. Fish are the future, my friends.
How do you want to spend your heartbeats? I was asked this question freshman year, and it jump-started my motivation to want to get the absolute most out of my college experience, and to graduate, having left behind a lasting impact on the RIT community. In high school, one of my advisors instilled in me that success in life is not just about what you know, but about who you know. With this in mind, I decided that I wanted to become a brother of Delta Sigma Pi, America's foremost professional business fraternity. I will forever be grateful for all the professional and social relationships that I have gained from my fraternity. And in my 5th and final year, I wanted to give back. These past 2 semesters, I have served as president of my chapter, and it has been one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences that I have ever had. As president, I wanted to shift my intentions away from what this fraternity could do for me, and instead focus on what I could do for it, what I could do to help initiate the change I wanted to see in my chapter. As I reflect on all the success my chapter has seen this year, I believe that each of these accomplishments can be attributed to one of 3 lessons that I learned and later embodied as president. 1, attitudes are contagious. 2, there is strength in numbers. And 3, communication is key. When I assumed my role as president, I knew that I was going to be seen as a role model, and I strived earnestly to always conduct myself in a manner that was positive, upbeat, and energetic, and I was thrilled to see these characteristics start to rub off on others. I learned to delegate, to give others the opportunity to take on their own responsibilities and get more involved. This transformed our chapter events to start to seem like more of a group effort, and we learned that when we worked together, we were greater than the sum of our parts. Giving each and every brother in our chapter their own voice is something that I wanted to establish. And for this to happen, a solid foundation of effective communication that stressed transparency and efficiency was essential for us to move forward as one cohesive unit. It's going to be very hard for me to leave this amazing group of people, but I know that the lessons that were learned this year will stay with me as I transition into the next chapter of my life. And I am hopeful that it will stay with my fraternity as well for years to come. Graduation is now just a few short weeks away, and I can stand up here today and say with confidence that I am proud of the heartbeats that I have spent at RIT. Thank you.
The most important thing I've learned since being at RIT can actually be described quite well through sheep. That's right, sheep. In Middle Eastern culture, it's common practice for shepherds to spend time with their sheep, get to know their sheep, and form a bond with their sheep. Through this bond, trust is formed. And it's through this trust that the sheep follow their shepherd. Let's refer to this as pulling the sheep. Now contrast this to how the rest of the world practices sheep herding through the use of a sheepdog. There's no bonding, there's no connection, there's no friendship. The sheep are simply go where they're told because that's all they know. Let's refer to this as pushing the sheep. Now, the idea of push versus pull leadership isn't anything new, but it's through my experiences at RIT that I really learned what this meant. The Reserve Officer Training Corps, or ROTC, is a program in which students can train to be in the military while also earning their degree. For many of us in the program, training to be in the military is a lifelong goal. So often our training feels more like our major than our actual academic major does. And our research quickly turns into, how can I be the most effective leader I can be? When I stepped foot onto campus 5 years ago, I fully immersed myself in the training. That meant trading hours of sleep for countless 6 a.m. workouts. That meant trading time with friends and family for time planning next week's training. That meant spending summer days not at the beach, but rather training in the hot Georgia summer sun. But through all of this training, something was missing. And I didn't realize what this missing puzzle piece was until my second year. In my second year, I had to declare an immersion. And I thought of what good is a future industrial engineer that can't portray his ideas and communicate what his thoughts are. And just like that, my immersion became, well, you guessed it, communication. To fulfill the immersion requirements, I enrolled in Communication 302, Interpersonal Communication. This class was all about how to connect with people on a deeper level. This class taught me what it looked like to interact and to communicate with a person on a personal level. It taught me communicating with person A may be completely different than communicating with person B. It taught me what it looked like not to just have a cookie-cutter answer for everybody in need. And this was just the puzzle piece I was missing. Through this connection, that's how you truly lead people, rather than just being an authoritative figure over them. Connecting with people is really how you grow that bond of trust, that people want to follow you, rather than you just pushing them. So I challenge you, next time you're in a position of leadership, don't just push the people, but rather pull them. Pull them by getting to know them, forming bonds of communication and trust. Thank you.
Beef Defender was the first video game that I ever made. It was a little 2D shoot-'em-up game where you played as a farmer. Aliens would come down from the sky trying to steal all of your cows. You had to fire back out at them to fend them off. It was the first time I ever programmed a game, the first time I ever made art for a game. It was the first time I ever released something that I made out into the world. It was not a good game. The controls were really clunky and hard to use. The AI was anything but intelligent, and the art, it looked like it was the first time I had ever tried to make art. By all metrics, it was garbage. A few months later, I gave a group assignment for a programming class. The assignment's pretty open-ended, really one instruction. We just need to make a video game. Immediately, my group went wild with ideas. You were going to play as a wizard, casting different spells against 6 unique types of enemies across 3 different levels, and it was all going to lead up to this awesome climactic boss battle at the end, and we got to about 1/4 of that before we ran out of time. Turns out making games was really hard. In the end, we submitted what we had, and it was garbage. But it was a little bit better than the first attempt. The controls were a little bit easier to use, the programming was more efficient, and the art was cleaner. It was a slightly better game. Fast forward to a few months ago, I get a new idea for a typing game. The idea is you and an opponent would be fighting each other, trying to type out 2 different sets of words. Whoever typed their set faster wins. Big twist is you're both typing on the same keyboard. With far too little thought as to whether or not that's really a good idea, I got to work. 8 hours and a lot of caffeine later, the game's ready for its maiden voyage. I call up a friend, explain the premise, he says, awesome, let's play test it. Guess what? It was garbage. It was not good. But it followed the same trend. It was more focused and streamlined on what it did better. It was better executed. It was a more playable game than my first attempts. I'm sure you all understand the point by now. Yes, I made 3 games. Yes, they're garbage. No, I don't like them. But I was never going to get it right on the first try. It's just like any other talent or skill. It takes time and effort to develop it. It takes a willingness to put yourself out there, to test your ideas, to try them, change them, throw them out if you need to. And most importantly, it takes a willingness to fail. I'm sure each and every one of you has ideas in your head, ideas you would love to get out into the world. Don't be worried that it might turn out to be bad. Get excited because it will turn out to be bad. It'll be nothing like what you have pictured in your head, and that's okay because the next time it'll be a little bit better. And the time after that, even better. And better, and better, and better. Because behind every creation that was worth making is a long, long line of garbage. Thank you.
We live in a world that that has so many flaws. Which is actually fantastic because you don't have to look too far to try to find something that needs to be improved. Now, as both as an industrial designer and entrepreneur, I'm always on the lookout for things that are wrong in this world and that might need to be improved. Every time that I do see something wrong, I add it to a list that I have that I'm able to go back to later and see if there's something on that list that I might be able to go back and solve. Most recently, I added a small problem to this list, and while it was a small problem, it was something that I still felt I might be able to work on. While traveling, I found myself very quickly running out of mouthwash. Now yes, a small problem indeed, but it was still something that made me wonder, can I have the same amount of mouthwash that I use at home in a small travel-sized bottle? This is where I came up with the idea, Gleam. Now using both design and entrepreneurship here at RIT, I began to work to see if this was an idea that might actually be able to come to life. I've entered this idea into a few competitions here at RIT, including the Tiger Tank, where I pitched a 90-second elevator pitch before judges to see what they would think. I'd now like to deliver a small portion of the elevator pitch now, to give you a bit more information about Gleam. In 2017, the U.S. Oral KO market reports they said close to 2 out of 3 Americans use mouthwash after brushing their teeth. Now that's fantastic if you have a large bottle sitting next to you, but what are you supposed to do when traveling? And you're only allowed to carry a small bottle that on average will last you less than 2 days. This is where I'd like to propose to you the all-new travel mouthwash bottle, Gleam. Gleam takes inspiration from existing liquid water enhancers, and all the user needs to do is take a cap's worth of our secret concentrated formula, pour it into a glass of water, swirl to dilute, and you have the same mouthwash to be using back at home. Now existing travel mouthwash brands, 3 ounces can get up to 4 uses. However, with Gleam, a 1 ounce bottle can get you up to 22 uses. Additionally, you can smile knowing that Gleam is environmentally conscious, as we're able to reduce up to 5 times the amount of packaging found in existing liquid travel mouthwash brands. Now that was a small portion of the pitch I delivered, and while I did not make it into the finals of that competition, I was still able to get amazing feedback from friends, coaches, and teachers, such as I could have spoken a little slower, and I could have worked on my eye contact, and I could have also done a little bit more of a competitive analysis. Now this was absolutely fantastic, as RIT has these competitions that allow students to fall fast, but get up quicker. With this knowledge, I'm able to apply it to the different ideas that I might have into the future, and go out into the world and go out beyond these walls to pitch the best of my ability. Thank you.
Last night, as I began to fall asleep after finally getting comfortable, an upsetting thought occurred to me. I had forgotten to turn off the living room lights. And I know we've all experienced this, but while most people are motivated to turn off their lights before bed in order to save money on their electric bill, I was motivated to save the world's water supply. And what does my electricity have to do with the world's water supply? Well, allow me to explain the freshwater supply research that I conducted for an environmental science course at RIT. Fresh water is a vital resource taken for granted every day. And while we can sit here and discuss the amount of people that are less fortunate than we are, when I had to choose a topic for this research, I wanted to contribute to a solution, not a discussion. So I dove headfirst into government documents, trying to educate myself on the issue. What I discovered was that the highest populated countries in the world used the most fresh water. And that makes sense. It also makes sense that the United States was 3rd most populated and also the 3rd highest consumer of water. Next, I wanted to know exactly how much water was being used. This is when frustration began to set in for me. Every time I made a calculation, I came up with an unexpected answer. And every time, I came to the same conclusion. The United States uses far more water than countries of a similar population size. The United States has a slightly larger population than Indonesia, yet we somehow use 2.5 times more water than they do. I had to understand why. And my research led me to the answer of thermoelectricity. Thermoelectricity is a process that produces steam from boiling water and rises to turn turbines that produce electricity. The United States uses 40% of its annual water consumption in order to make enough thermoelectric power. Almost half of our water supply in the United States goes towards creating electricity. Turning off your lights saves water in the long run, maybe slightly. I know it sounds strange, but to me, this project opened up my eyes to the mentality that our country has. Our need for instant gratification and our need for the highest power technology. And while I can't exactly change this mentality, the least that I can do is turn off the lights. Thank you.
RIT was my dream school, but there was one problem. I didn't know what I wanted to be. When deciding my major, I scanned the long list of everything this school had to offer. Amongst the endless list of choices, one caught my eye. Computing security. Hearing it now doesn't sound right. Saying it out loud doesn't feel right. And as you might imagine, being in it wasn't right. Intro to computer science was a nightmare for me. And with university physics lingering around the corner, I knew I had to get out. So I returned to that ever so intimidating list, analyzing every major at RIT. After days of research, I found my place. I stuck through my classes that semester, but I was meeting with advisors every day for 2 weeks. I signed a lot of papers, confirmed that this is what I wanted, and finally, before my second semester here, I had it all planned out. Human-centered computing was where I belonged. I went through that whole process, but I spent 2 weeks at HCC and was met with the same feelings of uncertainty and confusion. So what would you do? I panicked. Did I even belong at RIT? Fortunately, I had one more unexplored direction. For my immersion, I was taking Principles of Advertising with Barry Strauber. And if you've ever taken a class with that man, you know it only takes a day for you to realize that you belong there. So I switched again. This time, taking a bigger risk than ever before. No plans, just going after something I actually enjoyed. It was the best decision that I have ever made. In the past year, I have discovered myself and my passions through the work that I have done. One of the pillars of advertising and public relations is being able to speak fluently in a public setting. This emphasis on public communication was something that I initially feared. However, I took public speaking last semester, and I excelled. I was able to give my speech on LGBT representation at the Institute Public Speaking Contest. This opportunity not only affirmed my position within the major, but provided me with an educational and professional community that I could find myself being a part of. It has now been 1 year since I officially joined the School of Communication. It was a journey of wrongs that led me to the right, and I'm finally in my home. I finally found my place here at RIT. I am finally in my dream school. Thank you.